Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is the Simple, Handmade, Everyday podcast where I talk about living a creative, intentional life. I like to chat about quilting, sometimes knitting, what I'm reading and watching, and a little bit about keeping a cozy, organized home. You can find me online at my blog, Simple, Handmade, Everyday, and on Instagram at Kristen Esser. I've got my cup of tea in hand, so let's settle in for a chat. This is episode 27. Happy May! As I'm recording this is May 1st, which is very exciting. And I have my cup of tea here. Let me tell you about it. Today I am still drinking the Plum Deluxe tea that I talked about last week. And this is called the Kitchen Table Blend Black Tea. And again, I have to read the description. A great tea for great tea time conversations. It's got black tea, green tea, lemongrass, rose petals, jasmine flowers, lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit essences. And as always, love and gratitude. Totally love it. It's very fresh. I can really taste that lemongrass, which is, again, I do enjoy like a straight black tea a lot of the time. And so this really mixes it up. Also, I've been kind of realizing that the amount of black tea that I'm drinking is starting to kind of bother my stomach. So I kind of like to mix it up with some green tea and some things that are not just so, I don't know, have so many tannins to irritate my stomach. So I'm really enjoying the Kitchen Table Blend Black Tea. I will put a link in the show notes. So I am just, as I keep saying this time of year, enjoying spring. For those of you in the southern hemisphere, I'm sure that you are probably enjoying that transition into fall. I mean, aren't these the parts that we really like? We're coming out of winter or we're coming out of summer, and it's just like such a relief to have a change in the weather. So last weekend we put the garden in. It's a pretty unambitious garden this year. We've just got some tomatoes, some jalapeno peppers, which my husband slices up and doesn't even necessarily always slice them, but he pickles them. So we always have jalapenos year round. We love jalapenos. We put them in quesadillas and on nachos and in grilled cheese sandwiches and on eggs. Love canning the jalapenos. Well, he does. I just kind of I'm supportive about it. We've got a little strawberry patch. I'm unsure. It's from last year. I'm unsure if we're going to get anything decent. We just kind of get some pretty sad strawberries. So I'm not sure that's worth the real estate that it's taking up. We have what's kind of a square foot garden, if you've ever heard of that gardening method. So we have our garden separated into these 4 foot by 4 foot areas with little paths around them. Now, if I was really good, I would further separate those into little square foot things. And I used to do that, but I kind of don't now. But it is a nice, it's just like a nice little area that's easy to reach. So one of them has tomatoes with some marigolds in there because that kind of helps with the bugs. And then the other one has jalapenos, and the other one has strawberries. And then we've got this area along the back wall that has blackberries. And we replanted those last year. We used to have the most phenomenal, 12 or 15 foot of wall was just covered with one blackberry bush. Last year we replanted with 3, and they got a little smothered out by the flowers. But they're kind of rebounding now. So I'll be so happy when that whole wall is again covered with blackberries, because I have so many awesome memories and very cool pictures of my little kids standing in there with just blackberry juice just dripping down their little faces. So yeah, that's kind of it. I do want to fill in with some flowers. Last year I planted a lot of zinnias in the garden, and they were so pretty. I also did sunflowers, and I don't think I'm going to do those this year, but that was really fun. So that's kind of it. So I wasn't really feeling well last weekend, but I did go kind of help pick out these plants, and just at Home Depot. And we also picked up my favorite. They're called Drop and Bloom color bowls for the lazy gardener. There is an art to putting together a really nice color bowl of flowers. You know what I'm talking about. There's kind of something tall in the middle, and there's usually something drapey over the side, and there's 3 or 4 different, kind of flowers planted in a pot. And it's just, I've done many of them on my own by buying all the individual flowers, but you can't beat the ones that the pros do. And so for about $15, I bought 2 of these, and they're beautiful, but they're in kind of just an ugly plastic container. And you just come home and you just drop them right into like a 12-inch terracotta pot, which is what I have on my front doorstep. And so my husband said, well, I'll plant the garden. I'm like, okay, I'll take care of the front porch, and plop, plop, and I'm done. So, and every time I walk up the front door, I'm just like, oh, those flowers on the porch make me so, so happy. Thanks to Fat Quarter Shop for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Fat Quarter Shop is a one-stop show for quilting fabrics and supplies for quilters around the world. They stock quilt shop quality fabrics, pre-cuts, quilt kits, patterns, and notions. And did you know that they now carry cross-stitch supplies? They're always coming up with exciting new exclusives, clubs, and quilt-along programs. Join Fat Quarter Shop for the 12th annual Designer Mystery Block of the Month Club. The club features a collection, Orchard, by April Rosenthal, and begins in June, and there's still spots available. Fat Quarter Shop carries all major brands such as Moda, Riley Blake, Wyndham, Robert Kaufman, and Art Gallery fabrics, with the largest selection of Fat Quarter bundles. Whatever fabric, pattern, or notion you're looking for, chances are they have it. Visit them at fatquartershop.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. All right, let's talk some quilting. I just took a good sip of my delicious tea here. I think I talked last time about the Irish chain quilt that I finished using Loyal Heights fabric by Quilting in the Rain, and that is actually out right now for long arm quilting, which is quite a treat for me. I will talk more about that next podcast after I get it back, but I'm excited to tell you about that. But I'm doing an all-over edge-to-edge design, and I'm very excited about it. I've already stitched up the scrappy binding, and so it's ready to go. I do have kind of a funny story about the quilt back. I think last time I talked about how I am very challenged sometimes with quilt math, and so I end up with pieced backs, which I end up loving. I just don't really want to do a pieced back when I get to that part in the process of quilt making. But I bought plenty of fabric, even a little bit extra, because I wasn't sure about the scrap situation when I did the binding. So I bought a little extra fabric from Fat Quarter Shop for the back of this quilt. I bought this beautiful blue toile print. And so I'm about ready to just do that one seam horizontally on the quilt back so that I can package this up and send it to the long armor. When I've got the rotary cutter in hand. I'm about to make this cut because the way I do it is I just say that I had 3.5 yards of fabric. I would just cut that in half so that I have because I can't do math. Let's say I have 4 yards of fabric, which is actually what I had. And you cut it in half. So I've got 2 pieces of 2 yards of fabric. I sew them so that I will have basically 80 inches tall, one horizontal seam, so that I have width of fabric going vertically. Does that make sense? That sounds really complicated, but it's not. It's usually one horizontal seam in the back of the quilt. Well, as I'm approaching the fabric with the rotary cutter when I realize, oh my gosh, if I do it this way, these houses that are on the toile are all going to be going sideways. Now, you can argue that there's no right or wrong way to a quilt, but I think of quilts as being oriented, if they're rectangular, vertically, that they're tall, right? And my houses are going to be going sideways. And I was just like, oh no. And if you've ever done a quilt back like this, you know that the reason I do them horizontally, especially because I do usually throw size quilts, so that 40 times 2, the width of fabric, is usually plenty of height that I need for a quilt. It saves fabric that way. If you orient it vertically, it takes more fabric. It takes more yardage. Especially I didn't want to do a ton of piecing here because it's got a little picture going on there. So luckily I had ordered extra fabric. So I did have 4 yards. So the quilt was, where was I going to be short? Obviously there was plenty side to side, the width, and I was able to trim that down. But the quilt was in its unfinished form, 66.5 inches. And I did have 72 inches. So I had more than enough, but with long arming, you need more fabric because the way you hook it up onto the long arm, they just need more space than you do if you are just quilting it on your domestic. So in a panic, I emailed the long armor, and she said these magic words, which were pretty cool. Okay, so the way I figured out, I had about 2.5 inches. Like the quilt top could be centered with about 2.5 inches on the top and the bottom, the back would extend 2.5 inches on each side, which is it's very small for a long armor. And she said, well, she's really, generous here. She said, I think she said 3 to 4 inches. When I've worked with other ones, sometimes they say, 5 or 6 would be really nice. But she said 3 or 4 inches, but it doesn't all have to be backing. I was like, oh my gosh, that's true. As long as she can get the quilt on top of the backing, it's bigger than the quilt top, then in terms of what she needs to hook the clips onto and to load it onto the machine and all that, that's okay. It doesn't have to be backing. So I just got some waste fabric and I stitched an extra 4 inches on the top and bottom of the quilt to give her something to hang the clips onto and to hook it onto the machine. And that was like, oh my gosh, it's like saved my bacon so much. So that's off. I think it's being long-armed today. It's a computer edge-to-edge design. It's very pretty. I can't wait to show you. So that occupied a bit of time for me. I'm also finishing up some pin cushions that I did for a Fat Quarter Shop blog hop that's coming up this month, and it's hilarious because I signed up for this thing. They're republishing a lot of their old tutorials and people are making them in new fabrics, and I signed up for this in January. I made them like that day, all the way to the point they're stuffed with walnut shells and they're clipped, and all I have to do is sew this 1.5 inch little, sew the gap closed at the top of 2 pin cushions, and they have been sitting there for 3 months. It's crazy, but I need to just sew those up and photograph them for that blog post, and then I'll have 2 more pin cushions, which will be really fun. And so it's just funny how you can procrastinate about the weirdest things. What else is going on? Oh, speaking of procrastination, my friend Holly Ann over at String & Story, she does this summer stash busting series on her, blog and Facebook page. She does a gazillion Facebook Lives. She's very good at them. And she's just built quite an awesome community over there. Well, last year she challenged people to really be using their stash, like to come up with a project to really use your stash. This year, she's challenging people to finish up their whips. So she's got a fun little thing going where you can either try to finish up 4 whips or take a project and split it up into 4 pieces. Like within this set, it's over 8 weeks. So over this period of 2 weeks, I want to cut it out. And over this 2-week period, I want to piece it. And, you can just break it up however you want. And you can just follow along for no charge, but you can also, there's a registration thing, and she's got all kinds of little extras if you do sign up for it, like some quilt labels and stuff like that. So I'll put a link in the show notes, but you should check it out. I was thinking about entering some of my things just to kind of keep me motivated to keep moving on it. So, and what else am I working on? Oh, I am working on that Flying Geese table runner, and with the Prairie Sisters fabric. I talked about it last time, and I've made like 60 3x6 Flying Geese. They look really good, and it's funny because I laid them out on my design wall, which is not actually big enough because I need it to be, it's like 18 by 72 inches. And my original idea was it'd be like just a line of them going one way back, like 3 rows of them going opposite directions. And I put it up there and I went, that is super boring. I don't like that. And so then I moved them so that they were going short ways, so there's 6 of them going up the 18-inch side. Same thing, up and back and up and back. And I went, oh, that's better. That's a little bit more interesting, but it's still boring. And so then I moved every other row down a half a block so that they're off center, which is actually really super nice for not having to match corner points and stuff, And I thought, oh, okay, I'm getting there. I kind of like this. And this is kind of the fun thing about the design process is you can just keep playing. That's the beauty of having a design wall. And but I wasn't committing here because I'm just like, it's just kind of boring. I feel like I could do better. And I told you last time that I had this idea about doing them long ways down a table runner and leaving some spaces and maybe working in some smaller ones, like half size Flying Geese as well, to kind of just, make it more interesting. And I just kind of wasn't feeling that. And then I was scrolling through Instagram or something, and my friend Minky Kim had posted a that she has a quilt in a book called Love Flying Geese, and I'm going to reach down here and grab it. It is from Stash Book, C&T publication. Yeah, it's 27 modern quilt projects from Love Patchwork and Quilting. I knew I'd seen that. So it's called Love Flying Geese, and the cover quilt on it, I will link to it in the show notes, is exactly the type of thing that I was thinking of. And in fact, I will say I may have seen this quilt online and liked it. And when I was thinking about this table runner project, I think that maybe I thought I came up with this idea of mixing up the big flying geese and the small flying geese with a little negative space. I thought that I sort of came up with it, based on like a million other quilts that I've seen over the last 10 years. But I think that I was really inspired by this and didn't realize it, is what I'm trying to say, which is such the danger of, copyright these days. So I asked her if I could borrow this book from her. And it's funny, I was on my walk and I texted her and she met me at the sidewalk as I walked by her house and handed it to me. That's a great service. There's actually a lot of really cute flying geese quilts in this book. But now I might take just a section of this quilt and make it, and use just part of the pattern for the table runner. But there's part of me that's like, I kind of really like this quilt and I really like the fabric I'm working with. Maybe I should just make the whole quilt. So I'm a little undecided. It does not, and I actually have enough of the large flying geese. Those are done. All you have to do is make about 60 small flying geese, which I have not gotten started on. But so I'm not going to make a decision yet. I'm just going to make a bunch of small flying geese, and maybe my answer will be I will lay it out and see, am I happy with this as a table runner? And am I kind of done making flying geese? Which could be the case, and just sew that together and just be, okay, I'm done. So that will be my job for this week, is to kind of figure that out. But I do want to mention a couple things because I have made a lot of flying geese lately, and the way I'm doing it, I'm making them oversized, and I'm going to trim them with a block lock ruler, which is my favorite way. I will unabashedly tell you that I love block lock rulers, and I know they're a little expensive, but I think that they are worth the investment. So that's my number one recommendation about making flying geese, because the whole quilting process is so much more fun if you have accurate pieces to work from. So that's number one. Number two is I pulled out my Clearly Perfect Angles cling. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like this vinyl thing you can put on your sewing machine bed, and it allows you to sew point to point. Because the way I'm doing the flying geese is I've got a rectangle that's like 6 3/4 inches, and then I've got these 2 3 3/4 inches squares that go on, and I'm just sewing a diagonal line. And then I'm going to trim off the extra. Well, that is a lot of flying geese to mark, and they're too big to wing it. I'm not a winger anyways, but you put this little Clearly Perfect Angles cling on it, and you can just follow the edge. It's hard to explain, but you follow the edge of your fabric right up this line, which you could probably mark with tape or something if you really wanted to. That's another way to go. And you just get a perfect line every time. And I am actually taking the extra step, because these are pretty big, is that after I sew that first line, I'm going back and I am stitching another line a 1/2 inch away from that towards the corner, and I'm trimming off between those two stitch lines. So I'm getting a ton of bonus half square triangles. So I've done 60, so I've got 120 bonus triangles. So I will have to figure out what I'm going to do with those. So that's kind of, so that's been some kind of fun chain piecing, a little fun design inspiration. And I'll keep you posted on that. I do have to say that I did a little bit of knitting. What? I have not done that for so long. On Easter, it was a beautiful day. And it was a very laid back day. Only one of my kids came home from college, and we went to church, and we just came home. We made a brunch, and then we just had kind of a relaxing day until we actually then also made an Easter dinner. And I was looking for something where I could just sit outside and hang with the family. And I pulled out my sock, which is just a straight up vanilla sock pattern that's with some self-striping yarn. I was just partway down the cuff, and I just did some mindless knitting in the round, and it, reminded me that I love making socks. I love knitting. So I'm just about ready to turn the heel on that one. And, it's just kind of fun to, we do these crafts and we put them down because we get bored with them and get re-inspired. And, it's just kind of all part of the process. I read a quote recently that said something like, people who start creative projects and never finish them are cooler than people who never start creative projects. And I fully, fully believe that. So let's talk a little bit about books that I've been reading. This podcast is already getting a little long. I always think I don't have anything to talk about, and then I can really yammer on. So I talked last time about reading the Persian Pickle Club, and then that was a really fun little discussion in the Quilt Fiction Club Facebook group, where a bunch of people just kind of weighed in over the course of a day, just kind of chatting about this. So if you're interested at all, go to Facebook, join the Quilt Fiction Club. And I think they're going to make that a monthly thing to do a little book club. I came across somebody that I follow that loves to do book club kinds of things, and she's just really good at recommending books. It's Beezy Mama on Instagram, but she also has a more bookish account. She's got 2 accounts. I think it's called Jane Girl. I'll find it. I'll put it in the show notes. But she's reading the Agatha Christie books in publication order, like starting with, I meant to grab that book. Okay, I'm going to have to put it in the show notes, but it's Murder at the Vicarage or Death at the Vicarage, one of the two. I can't think of what it's called right now. But I'm reading that, and I started reading Agatha Christie in my 20s, and I've definitely read this book before, though I couldn't tell you who done it. And so I'm really enjoying that. It's super fast, easy reading. I got it from the library, and I don't know if I will read them all in publication order, but sneak in a little Agatha Christie in every once in a while, I think is just like really kind of making my reading life a little bit more enjoyable as I, continue to churn my way through some more, like I'm still reading the Michelle Obama autobiography, which I'm totally loving. But yeah, I do love a little murder mystery. And the other thing that I have read and am rereading, I don't know if you have ever read the Madame Chic books. Okay, so if you've listened to this for any amount of time, I love all things French, total Francophile. And years ago, I read this book by Jennifer Scott I think it's called Lessons from Madame Chic. Again, link in the show notes. And she was a foreign exchange student in college. She went and lived with a very chic French family for a semester. And she just realized how much differently they live than your standard Americans. They just kind of lived with a little more class. And it wasn't so much that things were formal, but it's just they sort of paid attention to living every day really well. And so I really enjoyed that book. And then, I don't know, I feel like that book came out maybe 15 years ago. Well, she has a YouTube channel called The Daily Connoisseur, which I had seen before, but I sort of recently rediscovered. And I'm really enjoying it because, again, it's just somebody like me who only does it better, who just really enjoys the everyday. She does what's called a 10-item wardrobe, which sounds a little bit crazy, but you have to go watch the videos. And I'm not doing a 10-item wardrobe, but I am inspired to pare things down. And so she does 10 core items. So that's your pants and blouses or a dress or a skirt, things like that. And then you have extras on top of that. You have t-shirts and cardigans and scarves and shoes. So it doesn't sound as austere as you might think. But, if I could just do a 15-item wardrobe, which I'm sitting, honestly, I record in my closet. I'm looking at my closet, which looks so much better right now because what I did is, so she changes her 10-item wardrobe up for each season, right? And so she puts away things, kind of like the way I used to rotate toys when the kids were little. You put them away, and then when you bring them back, you're like, oh my gosh, that's like new. So I put away a lot of my darker clothes and long sleeves and more wintry things so that when I go to my closet in the morning, basically everything's a good choice. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but I've really pared down with my wardrobe. Have I ever talked about this? That number one, I only buy something if I love it. If it's not, this is my mantra for life. If it's not, heck yeah, then the answer is no. This is about everything I buy these days. If I don't love it, I don't buy it. So, but the colors of my wardrobe are black, blue, pink, and that's kind of it. Maybe an olive green. So that's black and grays, anything from navy blue to lighter blues, which I know look really good on me, and then pinks and burgundies. And that is it. So everything I own goes with each other. I used to go through these things where, Ann Taylor Loft, they have these colors for the season, and I would have these oranges and these bright greens because that's what they were selling that year. And I knew they weren't really great, but I didn't know what else to do about it. But I just don't even buy them. I just say no. I will not buy purple. I will not buy any kind of limey green, only like an olive green. Orange is an absolute no. Yellow is an absolute no. And pretty much everything I own very few prints. It's a lot of solids, which sounds boring, but it really works for me. So you might want to check out the Madame Chic books. She did another one called Madame Chic at Home, which is just about really cultivating some good rhythms and routines and appreciation for how you live, at home. So totally up my alley. And check out the Daily Connoisseur YouTube channel. Shows that I'm watching, totally still watching Madam Secretary. If you were not watching that show, just go do that. It is so good. My husband and I are so loving. It's just a great show to watch together. I've talked about The Fix before on the last maybe 2 podcasts, so you might want to check that out. So that those episodes are coming out. Still loving that. The one movie that I saw this week that I really liked that I watched while I was sewing was called Under the Greenwood Tree, and it's from like 2005. So again, I'm not exactly on top of these things, but it has the woman. If you have watched The Durrells in Corfu, which is a PBS miniseries, or the remake of Upstairs Downstairs. It's the woman that's in that. And it was a charming story. It's a BBC, it came up Amazon Prime. It's like, we think you would like this. Amazon, no secret. They know me so well. And it's just a little charming, movie about, it's based on a Thomas Hardy novel about a woman who comes to a town, take care of her father. She's the new school teacher, and basically 3 men in very different circumstances all fall in love with her. The very humble farmer, the very rich landowner, and the vicar. The whole gamut there. And just kind of how that all plays out. So it's totally a romance, but I absolutely thought it was delightful. My friend Frances from the Off Kilter Quilt told me that PBS is running Les Miserables, and I have not watched it yet, but I am all about Les Miserables, so I'm totally looking forward to watching that. So I'll keep you posted if I end up enjoying that. But that kind of wraps up the different shows that I've been watching. Let's talk a little bit about homemaking before we wrap this up. I am continuing on my journey to fix 1 or 2 nagging things around the house every month. And you know what? I got to tell you, I totally encourage you to do this because I feel like I'm making so much progress. It's those little wins that just kind of make you happy. So, my husband and I really need to do a real job on cleaning the garage, which we will do, but we just kind of spent 1 hour and kind of just cleared off the floor. Like, it just visually is so much better. So that now that I can go through and I can kind of clean things off a shelf at a time or a section of shelf at a time. And that'll be the project that kind of gets me through the whole summer. And I'm really, even he said, and this is a big thing for my husband to say, we need to Marie Kondo this garage. Like, if it does not spark joy, if we do not need it or love it, it needs to go. And so I've got everything all together for like this, the upcoming e-waste event in our town, so I can get rid of old laptops and iPads, and then the hazardous waste event they have where you can bring all the old paint cans and batteries. So those are all like lined up ready to go and to just get out of my life. I got the carpet cleaned, which I do basically twice a year at the end of winter and the end of summer, and that felt really good. Even just little things like my daughter's closet door was not working, and it wasn't sliding. It was basically off the rails, and I'm just like, I don't even know who to call to fix this. But let me just tell you this little tip. My next door neighbor told me this. I went to homeadvisor.com. This is not sponsored. This is just what I did. Homeadvisor.com. You type in some information about what your project is, and they put you in touch with like local people who can handle that. So basically they put me like within, 30 minutes, a handyman called me and came that day and fixed it. It was like so amazing. So that's homeadvisor.com. And my next door neighbor says that they've done a million things with them. And now I actually have the card and phone number of a handyman, which I really needed, that was very prompt and kept his, everything was very clean and very trustworthy, and, charged a reasonable amount. And that I'm super excited about that card. So now the next little project that I have that I don't know who to call about, I have somebody to call. So that's pretty fun. And, okay, on the other part of homemaking that I just want to kind of wrap up with is this. I'm like, again, I'm slightly embarrassed to even tell you this, but from watching the Daily Connoisseur, she has these videos, it sounds ridiculous, where you basically watch her clean her bathroom or whatever. And this is a thing on YouTube. Did you know this? Cleaning videos. It sounds ridiculous, but it's kind of cool. So I watched her clean her bathroom, which made me get up and go clean my bathroom. But she uses these e-cloths. I'll put a link in the show notes. I'm not an affiliate. It's if you're been exposed to Norwex, where you just clean with water. There's something about the way these cloths are manufactured that they trap bacteria. You can just clean with water, and there's very little, like almost no transfer of bacteria. You just rinse them out with hot water and use them again, and it does not transfer bacteria. If you look on the website, they've got all the science to explain it. I know it sounds weird, possibly gross. I would never do this to clean a toilet, but they do a fabulous job of countertops and mirrors and just cleaning out the bathtub and the floors and things like that. So I bought a pack for $25. I'm like, I have to try this. And I think I'm a convert. I might have to buy another pack because I kind of like a pack for the kitchen and a pack to do the bathrooms. But you can totally clean with water. So you just go to her YouTube channel and check that out. And so from there, oh my gosh, I kind of got turned on to these cleaning videos. So I've got a few new fun YouTube channels that I like to watch. One is called Faith and Flower. She's a Christian mom, but she does these cleaning videos, and she also is into the 10-item wardrobe. And so she's very inspirational. And from there, kind of stepped up a notch is this YouTube channel called Inspired by Nikki, where she does these amazing cleaning videos set to music where it almost seems I think she's a photographer. She does it with this really awesome light. The light is beautiful. The music's beautiful. And even the way she moves through the room is pretty cool. And if you need a little cleaning inspiration, I'm telling you, I will link a few of these cleaning videos. I know it sounds crazy, but so many people you'll see in the comment are like, I cleaned my kitchen while like this was playing or whatever. So that's just a little spring cleaning motivation for you. And this wraps up this episode. Oh, I do want to mention that I don't think that there's any new reviews. I would like to apologize if you've left a review and I haven't thanked you. I'm kind of realizing that the reviews are different if you're on. I always look at them on my phone. Sometimes I think if you leave it on a computer, that those are separate. If you're in a different country, those are separate. And so I don't always see them in the way that I check before the podcast. So I apologize. I am so thankful. So if you have left a review or a rating, absolutely thank you. And keep them coming. Again, it just really helps the podcast grow because they really come up as people are searching for podcasts. So I'm very thankful if you take the time to do that. And just have a wonderful week. And we will see you next time.